There was two men living in the County Galway. One was called Tomás and the other Micheál. They were very different, yet very much the same. They were different in that Tomás, if he saw a bird with a broken wing, he'd bring it home and he'd fix that wing, put it in a little splint. And then he'd test the wing to make sure it was okay. He'd take the little bird out, he'd keep it with him until it could fly away. If he saw an old woman going down the street where they're shopping and there was too many carriages on the road, he'd step out onto the road slowly and he'd go, "Stop again, love her hull, please stop." And he'd get her across that street and home nice and safe. She'd try and give him a bit of money or some food, he'd say, "No." She'd smile, he'd say, "That's my payment." The other fella, Micheál, if he saw a bird with a broken wing, you know what he'd do? He'd chase it or he'd try and break the other one. If he saw an old woman trying to get home with the shopping, he'd try and steal the shopping off her. He was dreadful. He was an awful latchko. They were very different, but like I said, very much the same, because they both had a hump upon their back. Now in them times, people loved Caelan, visiting houses, especially when the darker months came around. And one night, the two of them were sitting with the rest of the community in Niall de Búrca's house, and there was storytelling going on. That's the way it worked. There'd be either telling scéals, or there'd be singing, a bit of rinka. Everybody took a turn. If you didn't do any of them, you'd have to do a forfeit, which meant you'd have to do a job. Tomás, he loved stories, and he was sitting in the corner. He mostly listened, whereas the other fella would be sitting in the other corner. And he's like that one you always see in every audience. There's always at least one audience member like this. Look. He never had a good word to say about anyone. Anyways, one night, LUAIN, it was nearly midnight, and Tomás stood up in the kitchen and he said to everybody, he said, "I want to go home." Good night, he said to Niall de Búrca, and he started going along the road home. And when he was going down the road home, he passed a hill called Knocknashee, the hill of the fairies. And when he was going by it, he heard from the top of the hill singing, Vidini Chana, Marshal, like this. De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon. De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon. He says to himself, that could be the fairies. Now the fairies of Galway, the fairies of Connacht, they're not like the ones in Hollywood. They don't have wings and little, what are those things called, the wands? They don't go Tinkerbell, no. The ones in Galway, especially in Knocknashee, they're like you and me, except their blood is white. And they can appear and disappear, and they can give us trouble. Sometimes you might be walking down the road, you see a group of handsome people, and they'll say, "Come on, we're having a bit of a Caelan here. We're having a bit of a party." You go inside, you have a great time, you fall asleep, you wake up the next day, you're in the middle of a field, there's no one around you, and you discover 100 years has gone by. Fairies can be dangerous. Anyways, Hulashe, he hears. Hulashe Nadini Khana hears the people singing, and he says to himself, "That's fairies singing, it sounds good." He climbs up the side of the hill through the woods. He's got to listen to the rest of the song, but they keep repeating the same words. De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon. Duskel Shinadalogi, he opens up the leaves of the bush at the top of the hill, and he sees there under the moonlight these people, and they're coming out of a mound in the ground, like an old cairn. It's the fairies of Connacht. And there in the middle is their queen, and she's wearing a golden robe, upon her head a golden crown, and in her hand a golden goblet, and she's drinking from it. And then she spat into the air. And when she spat into the air, the liquid that flew from her mouth, it turned into stars and all the colours of the rainbow. Bui agus jarag agus gurum agus cos up in the sky like fireworks. And Tomás, he's watching. And around her, all the good people, the fairy people, Visha de Dausa, and they're singing the words, De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon. And because Tomás is Irish, he can't keep his mouth shut. We love talking. He wants to join in. He keeps singing along, De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon. His eyes are closed. He's unaware. He's now in the middle of the fairies. Visha e grinka. He's dancing around. De loon de mart, de loon de mart, de loon de mart. And because he's Irish, you know the way we never stop talking once we get going? He starts to add extra words. He's like this, de lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de cadine, de lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de cadine. And then he realised nobody else is singing but him. He opens his eyes and all the fairies are standing around looking at him like this. Huh? And the Queen of the Fairies, she puts down her goblet of gold and she says, I like your style. Tomas, nice of you to join us. How do you know my name? I'm the Queen of the She, I know everything. Taran shot, and she goes like this. And he lifts up in the air, body and bone. He floats over to her and she goes singing again. He goes, what the words? The words you were singing, the add-ons. He goes, de lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de cadine, de lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de cadine. And she put him on the ground. She turned to the other fairies and she said, Vishishin Harkim, that's good. I like the way he's added to it. Everybody try and copy him. And all the fairies are all dancing round and he's in the middle. De lundamat, de cadine. And she said, you help the Connacht fairies, we help you. So she lifts him up, body and bone again. Agus Dorothy, she raises up her hand and she sprinkles some of this dust out of her fingers. It landed on his back. And then she put him on the ground. And as soon as he landed on the ground, his back was no longer heavy. The hump was gone. It was real light. Caramila Mahaga, thank you so much. You took away my hump. And she said, now, Tewalia, go home. And tomorrow when the sun comes up, take a spade and dig behind your back door. Anything you find in the ground you can keep. Dig as hard as you can, because that hole in the ground will disappear when the sun's above your head. And then she pointed through the air and he found himself flying through the sky. Oh! He landed right outside his door. He goes inside, he gets his spade, opens the back door and waits for the sun to come up. This hole, as soon as he starts digging it, it gets bigger and bigger, and he discovers there's a great big pot of gold. He's shoveling it out of the hole onto the ground. And that night he went to the storytelling at Niall de Búrca's house. Nura Coog Shays Jock. She said, oh, what happened to your back? He said, wait till I tell you. Niall, can I tell the first tale tonight? And he told the story about how he met the good people on Loch Nashee and how the fairy queen, how she had taken away his hump when he sang the words, De Lundamat de Cadine. Everybody was thrilled for him. Och, dinna a wine. But one person, and you know who that was, sitting in the other corner, in the hall of the scéal, the latchco. He stands up, he goes, you're talking raw mesh, Tomas. That didn't happen. I bet you went away to Dublin and got your back fixed up there. I'm going home. This is pathetic. He went out the door, but he didn't go home. You know where he went. He goes down the road. Skin dark. He climbs the hill in Loch Nashee. Gets to the very top and he hides in among the bushes. And he waits. He thinks to himself, I'm a better singer than that fella, I'm telling you. When the fairy queen comes out tonight, I'll sing and she'll take away my hump and I'll get double the money, because I've double the songs that fella ever had. And then when the moon was up above the hill and the stars were shining down at midnight, out of the fairy mound comes the queen and the good people. De lundamat, de lundamat, de lundamat, de cadine. And in among them there was the queen of the fairies, and she having the golden goblet. And from her mouth, colours of the rainbow, glas bui jada, roshta, was pure joyous. And there, hiding his wee hole, he goes, here I go. I'm going to sing now real good. Do you know anyone in your family who thinks they can sing and they can't? Niall was that type. He starts singing like this. Then something hit him on the head. It was a bird falling dead from the trees. Such was the awfulness of his singing. He opened his eyes and he saw the fairies all looking at him like this. And the queen of the fairies, she put down her goblet, she pointed at him, Torrance shot. There she says, come here, and he flies through the air. She grabbed a hold of him and she said, you ruined that song on me. After Tomas made it nice and sweet last night. Don't you mess with the queen of the Connacht fairies. She put her hand over his back and something fell from it, dust. And then she cast him down, body and bone, and he didn't stand up straight, no. You know what happened? He bent over double heavy. He hadn't just the one hump on his back, and Nish, now there was two. He had Tomas's hump as well as his own. She said, "Awalya, Nish, home now." And she went, and he flew through the air all the way home. As he landed at his cottage, a voice called through the air, "Make sure to dig a hole behind your back door as the sun comes up." It was the fairy queen's voice. At least she's given me some gold, he thought. He bracha and lay at the break of the day. There he is outside his back door, and he's digging a hole. But not a lump of gold did he find. Instead, he saw on the ground thousands of rats and mice, and they chased him away from his cottage in Galway, around the 32 counties of Ireland 32 times. And when eventually he stopped, he found himself in Ballinasloe, fine town. It's a pity he ever landed up there. If ever you go to any town in County Galway, there's the chipper, just like in Ballinasloe. And always outside the chipper, at least once a night, there'll be a fella standing there like this, look. If you go to Ballinasloe, there's a famous takeaway. You'll often see me Hall there, standing outside the chipper. He's the one. Don't bother talking to that fella. He ain't worth it. He's latch cut. He's still got the hump. Something shocking. Never has a good word to say about no one. Stay well clear of him. But remember the words of the tune. If ever you go by Knocknashee, or the Hill of Knockma, or Killure, or any other place where the good people gather. They loondamat, Hendo, 3, good luck to them, good luck to ye.